Hey guys, welcome to the very first episode of the Talkin Cards podcast, hosted by me, Abby Sharpe. Happy almost opening day to everybody. It's so exciting. We're only days away from finally getting some 2020 regular season baseball. But before we get into the show, I wanted to take a second to kind of explain what this podcast is and what I kind of envision it to be. So, I love to have fun with things. I think that's, I think life is a lot more fun when, you make fun of people and things and just have fun with it. So that's kind of what I want this podcast to be. I'm just going to have fun with it. Probably making fun of some people along the way, talking about players, game outcomes, making fun of people for on-field mistakes, making fun of Harrison Bader for whatever outfit he wears out after the game. But anyway, we'll get to the show now. So I want to spend today talking about someone who is coming off a god-awful 2019, but someone that the Cardinals desperately need to have a great year, and that is third baseman Matt Carpenter. So before we get into what 2020 could be for him, we'll go back in time. Let's look at his stats from 2018. He hit .257 with 36 home runs, 897 OPS. 36 home runs is by far the most home runs that Matt Carpenter has ever hit in his career since he got called up in 2011. Now, if you're like me, you remember that 2018 was the year of the salsa for Matt Carpenter, and I'm going to say that that's why he hit so many homers. It has nothing to do with juice baseballs. It has nothing to do with, he figured out his swing or whatever you guys want to say. No, it had everything to do with Matt Carpenter making salsa and eating it. I don't care. I think the fact that he didn't have salsa in 2019 was what ended up hurting him. It was 2019. He ended the year with a .226 average, 15 homers, and a .726 OPS. Either career lows or close to it for Carp. So even though 2019 wasn't great, he was dealing with injuries, and probably trying to do too much when he came back, not trusting his hitting approach, whatever the case may be, he still finished the last 20 games in 2019 with a .288 average and a .945 OPS. And he kind of carried these numbers into the spring training that we had this year, the summer camp that we've gotten to experience for the first time this summer, which is good. I mean, he spent his extended 2020 offseason working on his swing. And, according to his fellow teammates and coaches, they can tell. They're noticing that he's trying to get back to where he was. Mike Shildt said that he thinks that Carp finally has his hitting identity back. He's finally going to get back to where he was in 2018 and just not trying to do too much. That's what the Cardinals preach. Just, going up there, just hanging back in the box and, seeing the pitch you want and swing. That's, Cardinals preach the most basic hitting approach. Just don't get inside your head and swing at the pitch you want. That's it. So hopefully Carp is getting back to that. Now, I saw this article the other day by Mark Saxon from The Athletic. He was basically talking about why a 60-game season is the best thing that could ever happen to Matt Carpenter. And here's why. There was a 60-game stretch from May 2018 to July 2018 where Carp hit .350 with 22 homers and an OPS over 1,000. I mean, obviously that's good. He went yard 22 times in like a 2-month span. Like, that's pretty good for anybody, right? But to me, what was even better was the OPS. It's showing that he was taking his walks and getting on base for the guys behind him. And as the leadoff hitter, that's the most important thing that Matt Carpenter can do, right? The only way you win games is by scoring runs. The only way you score runs is if you have guys on base. Like, home runs aren't everything, and the Cardinals are, kind of the poster team for that. They still play small ball, still steal bases, still, they play baseball like Bob Gibson played baseball with the Cardinals in the 80s. Like, they're they stick to what they know, and they're good at that. So all that is to say that if Matt Carpenter can get back to what his offense was in 2018 and, basically show off the 60-game sprint of a season, then the Cardinals will be great. But if Carp is the same Carp that we saw last season, the guy who, he's always started off every season pretty cold. And then he slowly, it takes him a couple weeks. He works up to that, the offense that we know that Matt Carpenter can have. So if he starts hot, then the Cardinals will be great. But the thing about 2020 is that since we only have 60 games, there's no time for anybody to be bad at the start of the season. If you're bad at the start of the season, you're going to suck the entire time because there's no room for error, basically. Like, we're talking about a 60-game season is essentially what August and September is, right? And August and September are generally the Cardinals' some of their best months offensively. They've always been a second-half team, always like what they did last year, like to go on runs and put themselves in a wild card position and, make some noise in the playoffs. If they don't start this season like that, like, my entire point in all of this is that they need to start in a couple days, like where they normally are in August. Like, they don't have a couple of games to give. They don't have any of this. You're playing your division and the AL Central, which, yes, the AL Central is filled with some mediocre teams, but guess what? The Twins and the Indians are in that division, and the White Sox looked pretty damn good against the Cubs their last 2 games. So you really can't sleep on the schedule at all. Like, the NL Central most of the teams have made themselves pretty competitive. The Cubs still suck, but, it is what it is. So yeah, if Carp finds his swing from 2018 and can produce, about the same numbers and, give the Cardinals what they know he has left in his, swing, and just basically give all that he has left into the season, they'll be good. If he's cold and if Goldie doesn't start off very well, then the Cardinals are going to be screwed because those 2 guys have to be, and really are, the cornerstones of the Cardinals offense. My last thing for today. So the Cardinals are playing the Kansas City Royals tonight in their exhibition game. And thought it was interesting when I looked at the lineups that Matt Carpenter is not hitting leadoff. Tommy Edman is. Not sure, what the thinking is behind that. It's not like I have any connections in the organization. But it will be interesting to see how Mike Schulte puts the lineup together this season and, basically where Carp fits into all that. So thanks so much for tuning into the very first episode of Talkin Cards. My social media and website will be linked in the description, so you guys can follow along there for all my, Cardinals related rants and everything else. If you guys want to hear about a certain player or have anything you want me to talk about, just let me know, and I'll talk to you guys soon.